Here's what happens when your largest employer in town moves out.
Just announced another plant closure and laid off hundreds of Pennsylvania steel workers.
A massive layoff, which could leave more than 500 Pennsylvanians without jobs.
2 to 5 years, and even the company expects that. After that, you better be looking for something, because it's either you ain't getting paid what you should.
Today is your last day, the notice read. Words no steelworker ever wants to hear. Yet, by June 30th, 2025, Cleveland-Cliffs will have idled 3 historic U.S. plants, including its Steelton, Pennsylvania mill, founding a community that's endured since 1866. Nearly 950 employees across Steelton, Conshohocken, PA, and Riverdale, Illinois, will see their shifts disappear overnight. In Steelton alone, half of the town's 6,263 residents worked at that plant. Closing it wipes out 500 to 550 family incomes in one fell swoop. Cleveland-Cliffs, North America's largest flat-rolled steel producer, announced these idlings after reporting a $483 million loss in Q1 2025. CEO Lorenzo Gonçalves blamed weak demand for non-core products like rail, specialty plate, and high-carbon sheet. Yet, when Trump slapped a 50% tariff on all steel imports on June 4, 2025, domestic prices spiked to $984 per ton, compared to $690 in Europe, raising costs across automotive, construction, and rail industries. Customers simply bought cheaper foreign rails despite the tariff, citing tighter budgets. One plant manager confessed, "Our biggest rail client sources half from Japan's Nippon Steel. Tariffs haven't changed their decisions." In towns built around these mills, live-in family legacies now face sudden unemployment. Steelton's mayor, Sierra Dent, warned the borough could lose 20% of its workforce, plunging local businesses into chaos. The diner that once served 200 breakfast crowds now braces for half that. Servers fearing layoffs of their own. High-paying union wages powered Steelton's economy for generations. Without them, a ripple of empty houses and closed storefronts will sweep through Dauphin County. Trump's steel tariffs were meant to armor U.S. producers against foreign competition, but the reality has been far more complex. Cleveland-Cliffs stock surged 33% on the initial tariff news, sparking Wall Street optimism. Yet in practice, higher steel costs have constricted orders from automakers and infrastructure projects, whose budgets can't absorb the extra $300 per ton. Altogether, the company is projected to save $300 million annually through these closures, money it hopes to recover by focusing on core automotive sheet products. But at what human cost? Oil rig fabricators in Texas already balk at paying $2 million more per project. A Midwest rail contractor halted 2 track-laying jobs after realizing imported rail ends up 10% cheaper post-tariff. Those cutbacks directly hit the specialty plate and rail divisions that downtown Steelton depended on. Workers report receiving closure notices with no severance details. Only a date stamped on a plain white memo, June 30th, 2025. We've seen how tariffs and shifting demand forced these historic mills to go silent, and how 950 workers and an entire town now face an uncertain future. But these closures aren't isolated. They reflect bigger questions about the effectiveness of trade policy and the survival of American manufacturing. Next, we'll dive into Cleveland-Cliffs' $300 million cost-cutting strategy, the CEO's controversial statements about defending tariffs, and the ripple effects on industries from railroads to auto assembly. Stay tuned. There's a lot more at stake than just steel. Before we dive back in, please hit the like button. Your support fuels every story we share. We're aiming for 5,000 subscribers on Global Insight, and your subscription would mean the world to us. Thank you for helping us grow. Now let's continue. The heart-wrenching silence of Steelton's blast furnaces tells only half the story. Behind the closures lies a ruthless cost-cutting playbook that Cleveland-Cliffs hopes will shore up its balance sheet. And it's leaving a path of broken promises in its wake. In a May 2025 earnings call, CEO Lourenço Gonçalves laid out a grim calculus. Idling 3 non-core plants would save the company roughly $300 million annually. By shuttering Steelton, Conshohocken, and Riverdale, Cleveland-Cliffs intends to focus its remaining capacity on flat-rolled automotive sheet, its bread-and-butter product. Yet this strategy hinges on the very tariffs that were supposed to boost domestic producers. Gonçalves himself praised Trump's 50% steel levy, calling it a bold defense of American industry, only to concede weeks later that downstream customers were simply buying cheaper imports, undercutting his company's pricing power. That reversal has cost Gonçalves credibility. Union leaders released leaked excerpts from an internal Q&A where he admitted, if demand doesn't rebound by Q4, more idlings are on the table. Workers bristled at this public flip-flop. One veteran millwright, having clocked 35 years at Steelton, told local media, "He thanked us for believing in tariffs. Now we're collateral damage. It feels like a bait and switch." Cleveland-Cliffs isn't alone in feeling the pinch. Manufacturers from Detroit to Dallas report that a ton of U.S.-made steel now costs $984 versus $690 in Europe, post-tariff. At an auto parts plant in Michigan, managers announced a temporary shutdown of a stamping line, citing uncompetitive raw material expenses. In the rail sector, one major contractor halted 2 Midwest track projects indefinitely, lamenting that tariff-driven price increases wiped out profit margins. "We supported tariffs to save American jobs," a contractor's president told the Wall Street Journal. "Instead, we're canceling orders left and right." Steelworker unions had initially lobbied for tariffs, believing they'd protect members' livelihoods. Now they're suing the administration, demanding subsidies for displaced workers and a reversal of duties that have backfired. In Steelton, the Union Hall, once a hub of solidarity, now serves as a makeshift food pantry for laid-off families. Children who once clung to the promise of union pensions now face scholarship pullbacks. Local banks recall home loans as unemployment spikes. Critics argue that Cleveland-Cliffs and policymakers ignored smarter solutions. Instead of blanket tariffs, industry analysts had proposed targeted safeguards, temporary import quotas on specific products like rail and specialty plate, paired with incentives for domestic buyers. These nuanced measures could have protected Steelton's core business without burdening automotive and construction customers. But political theater and broad-brush policies won the day, leaving workers to bear the brunt. The closure of Steelton's mill isn't just another corporate decision. It threatens to erase nearly 160 years of heritage. Founded in 1866, the Steelton plant forged rails that built America's railroads, sank beams into skyscrapers, and powered wars. Generations of families, grandfathers to sons, clocked in under its smokestacks. Now, that legacy flickers out alongside the final torch of molten steel. Mayor Sierra Dent has personally lobbied Washington for relief. In a recent town hall, she reminded lawmakers that Steelton isn't just a dot on the map. It's the economic engine for Dauphin County. With 20% of the workforce suddenly jobless, local businesses brace for closures, and municipal revenues could plunge by an estimated 15%, jeopardizing schools, public safety, and infrastructure projects. Dent urged federal just transition funding, grants to retrain steelworkers in new trades like advanced manufacturing or green energy, but so far, responses have stalled. Steelton's fate echoes challenges in Rust Belt towns from Ohio to Illinois. When tariffs meet global market realities, the intended fortress of domestic industry can become a gilded cage, too costly for customers, too small to sustain the entire ecosystem. Economists warn that blanket protectionism without targeted support risks repeating this tragedy elsewhere, closing factories that were once pillars of regional growth. Unemployment benefits and food assistance provide a temporary lifeline, but many Steelton families face a stark choice: relocate for work, retrain for unfamiliar fields, or rely on shrinking savings. A dozen laid-off welders have already applied for positions at a new EV battery plant 50 miles away, only to find competition fierce as workers from other shuttered mills flock to the same opportunity. Without coordinated investment in local job creation, Steelton's brain drain could accelerate, leaving an aging population and empty streets. Steelton's closure shows that durable manufacturing requires more than tariffs. It needs strategic investment in high-value, niche steel products, partnerships between government, unions, and companies to align tariffs with targeted assistance, long-term planning that balances protection with competitiveness. Absent these, towns like Steelton risk becoming cautionary tales rather than thriving industrial centers. Yet, hope remains. Nearby Conshohocken is exploring conversion of its idle mill into a green hydrogen production site, leveraging existing infrastructure for next-generation energy. Riverdale's Community College launched accelerated training programs in robotics maintenance, aiming to repurpose former steelworkers' mechanical expertise. If Steelton can attract similar projects, perhaps a specialty alloy plant or a metals recycling hub, the town might write a new chapter in its storied past. If you've been moved by Steelton's story, check out our previous deep dive on FedEx fires employees in the U.S., massive delivery losses reported, by clicking the video on your screen now. There, we unpacked another major corporate shakeup, revealing how strategic shifts in automation reshape America's workforce, one job cut at a time. Don't miss it. Hit that video and stay informed on how these forces affect us all.